Hello and welcome to this Inkjet Summit virtual case study about the Borns Group and Lee Borns, who shared some great information with us. So we'll be sharing more about that. But first, let me tell you who is on this virtual session today, where you guys can see us, but you can't touch or feel us. I'm Jonathan Malone McGrew, the Senior Director of Engagement with Solimar Systems. I report to the lovely Marianne Rowan, our Chief Experience Officer, who has been with Solimar pretty much since the beginning, and many of you know her from previous Inkjet Summits. And then we have the industry expert and renowned analyst, Pat McGrew with McGrew Group. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Pat and have her kick this off with a little bit about direct mail, Inkjet, and how all of this comes together to make this a valuable session linking to the Borns Group.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jonathan. Thanks, Marianne. I am always delighted to work with the case studies at Solimar because the customers are always so innovative. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is one of my current favorite web pages. One of the things we always say about printing companies is that they're often marketing themselves as though what they do is a secret. And I feel that that's a shame, but I was so delighted when I met the team from the Borns Group, and I have actually had a couple of phone calls now with Lee Borns about the path that they took and how they got to the point where they created such an amazing web page. So who doesn't want a web page that says not only what you do, but gives you advice and guidance? So this is what happens when you go to their webpage right now. The first thing they say to you is, do you want to convert your direct mail into real revenue? Well, who doesn't want to do that? I like the yes, show me how, or no, I'd like to waste money. There you go, and watch cat videos. But the thing that I found is that not only is their opening tombstone page fabulous, but every step of the way, they guide you through how to work with them. And to be honest, there's nothing better than that. But you have to understand about Borns Group is that they're paying attention to the market. And let me tell you why that's important. Direct mail is important now more than ever. I think that we got the sense that all forms of print were kind of declining a little bit. And in our current situation where people have been locked down, people have been sent home, there was a sense that direct mail might be in a little bit of trouble. And the thing that we know is that nothing could be further from the truth. Now, the cool thing about the team at Borns Group is that they do a lot of your classic direct mail. They also do a lot of solicitation mail. And as you can see from the quote on the left side of the screen from the Philanthropy Daily, their best recommendation is that you have to keep sending those solicitations out. You have to stay engaged. It's not just in solicitation on the donation and charitable giving side. Every data point we look at, from the point where the quarantines entered our lives and the lockdowns entered our lives to today and predicting this to go further, tell us that you need to stay engaged. A third of consumers told researchers that if a company goes quiet and stops mailing to them, they worry that that company is in financial trouble. Okay, I get that. 46% of consumers say they like receiving mailed deals. Well, who doesn't want a deal? But also promotions, and even millennials who sadly get tarred with the brush of not liking printed material. 86% of them responding to a Velasa study said they like mailed coupons. They like deals too. Who doesn't? So both Inkjet and Inkjet Hybrid are the two most cost-effective ways to produce your direct mail marketing and stay engaged with your customers. So these surveys that I've done were done just within the last 2 months, which means they are absolutely, in June and July of 2020, they are absolutely fresh data. And I expect that as I continue these surveys, I'm going to continue to find that this is how you're going to do it. So direct mail, Inkjet go together like butter on bread. I think that the thing that you'll find from the rest of this great presentation from the Solimar team is that Borns Group has found the golden key to making direct mail a revenue producer for them. So with that, Mary Ann, let me turn it over to you so that everybody can learn the really cool story behind Bourne's Group.
Well, what was so great is I got to meet Lee Bournes last year at Inkjet Summit. And since then, as we'll talk about through the presentation here, he has acquired a large color inkjet and a full brand new workflow. And the numbers that he's given us and have received are just amazing. So there's a little screenshot right from our website of the case study itself. When you want to read it in detail, these are all, there's lots of detail in this. What we did is we kind of went through his whole presentation. And so very similar to lots of other direct mail houses, for example, they had a big commercial press. They used to make all of their own shelves, have to let them dry for days, cut them, and then feed them into the laser printers. But so the processing time was just extensive. The good news is they had lots of customers who've been customers of theirs for a long time, but it limited them in lots of ways to take on new customers and bring on new types of applications. And so again, in 1 year, he gets a color inkjet press, or his team does, and puts the Solimar workflow solution in place, a full PDF-centric workflow. And the results are really just great.
You know, one of the things, Mary Ann, that I'd point out to everybody about Lee's workflow before and after is that it's very, very typical of people attending the Inkjet Summit. So this is one of the reasons you come, is to learn how to turn what you were doing with all those delays into something that's fabulous.
Oh, I totally agree too. I mean, just in watching that even Inkjet Summit as a show evolve over the years, and this year we're coming to you virtual, but the power of understanding Inkjet and how it can just revolutionize someone's business. I think this is a great example, just the top and bottom, the before and after.
So wanted to just cover briefly, so the Solimar Suite, we have a chemistry platform which has modular integrated solutions as part of the platform. And so what we do is we work with customers like Lee Bournes and the Bournes Group and see, what do you currently have and where would you like to go? And we make a roadmap as to step by step, how can we help you get there? And so in the next slide, we kind of highlighted the glowy bits are all of the pieces of the platform that were needed for Bournes Group to accomplish what they would like. And so very high level, the Print Director Enterprise, one of our flagship products, does all kinds of transforms and print management. We've had it for a long, long time, constantly renewing it. Core to what we do. Rubica is post-composition. So it takes all kinds of small jobs and batches them together, optimizes the output for driving the color inkjet. So Fusion does workflow automation. So we make everything templatized. So with Lee, it's a one-time setup, rapid onboarding, easy to get new customers right into the workflow. Then they also are adding, and they've added SoloTrack and SoloTrack Mobile. So now they have a mobile dashboard with visibility into what's going on in their shop.
And Mary Ann, I just have to add in here, you know, in the past, in a room full of Inkjet Summit attendees, you'd say, who in here would want to see their shop and what's going on in it right from their mobile phone right at this moment? Raise your hands. And so I'm visualizing all these people on this virtual event raising their hands going, yeah, I'd really like to know what's happening because I'm working from home. So that's something that they could do with SoloTrack Mobile. So just mention that real quick. And then what we want to share with you now is really all of these great results from Bournes Group's case study. And this is just a really impressive change in a year. You know, we can't express how, you know, important Inkjet can be to a business, especially looking forward into 2021. And so I think we've shown the numbers here, Mary Ann. I think maybe it'd be best to even take the words of Lee himself and talk about a few of the things he shared with us around these numbers, like 400,000 increase in yearly incremental sales revenue. I mean, that's really, really impressive. And Lee said, bottom line, Rubica is responsible for adding this amount of money to their incremental sales. I mean, Pat, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Do you see that a lot with Inkjet people you work with?
So here's the thing, you know, it's a combination of putting in a workflow that is as automated as you can get it, which is what the chemistry platform brings to the table, and having a customer who is willing to take a hard look at their processes and use the power of the software that they're investing in. That's what brings this kind of incremental sales revenue to the table.
Marianne, maybe you'll share this next one for us.
Sure. So in the reduction of his yearly labor and operational costs, he was actually able to redeploy lots of his workers and operators into other types of applications instead of all the paper processing and things that they had to do. Plus, he didn't have to hire additional people to do the work that they were desiring to do. So, yeah, huge benefit in just cost savings as well.
And if I remember correctly from his conversation, Marianne, the other thing is that it prepared him for this kind of situation where he couldn't have everybody in the plant, and therefore, you know, because he's more automated, because he's got more almost lights out in some parts of his workflow, he was better prepared.
Yes, because we even talked about being able to bring in that new inkjet press and what it replaced, and how much more room he actually had, because we asked lots of different logistical questions. But the biggest thing, again, going from days to hours and getting work out, and with a full PDF workflow.
And you can read these different bubbles. We hope you review this again with us in the future. But as this is just two. And then, so we move on, right, to a $20,000 savings in development costs. And really, this is around IT type of activities and what their teams internally had to do. And Lee shared with us that they were able to reduce their research and in-house development and allow those teams to do more important work for the business. And I just think that in today's climate, that's so important, because I think we believe sometimes that we may have already optimized as much as we can, but when you're shifting to an inkjet world, you can do so much more.
And the thing that most workflow consultants will tell you is that, especially in a high-speed, high-volume environment, if you're trying to maintain in-house written code and you're trying to write a lot of scripts and do it all yourself with a lot of DIY code, you're in a slightly riskier environment than if you're working with a vendor who you trust and is truly a partner to you.
Right, because he actually chose his workflow separate from his hardware. So he made those two separate processes, which of course we encourage them to do. But sometimes, because sometimes the hardware vendor software isn't necessarily the right fit for their overall workflow of what they're going to be presented. And this is the case with Borns Group.
Well, and I think him wanting to go to this PDF workflow just made this a really great fit with Solimar too. You know, our experience in PDF for well over 20 years made it a great outcome. And then as we go ahead, I mean, Pat, do you see these kind of numbers in turnaround time when you talk to people? Is this what people are looking for? Do they struggle with this? Because
So
I think
bottlenecks,
60%,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the things we hear when people spin up an inkjet site, especially if they're coming from toner-based workflows where maybe they were feeding a lot of different machines and they were all slower, you know, they might have thought that they had an efficient workflow. But when they try to apply that same workflow to a very high-speed device, and every one of these inkjet devices is a high-speed device, it is very hard to make those types of workflows produce at the same rate. So think about where you get bottlenecks. You get bottlenecks in job onboarding. You get bottlenecks in pre-flight. You get bottlenecks in making sure that the color is managed correctly. You get bottlenecks when resources are missing and all of these other, you know, bits and pieces. And if you've been doing offset pre-printed shells plus adding content to it, you're touching the paper twice, you're adding cost to it. But the other thing that's happening there is that you are you're really putting yourself at more risk, and your workflow is probably not as efficient as it could be. It's all that drying time that was on Lee's original slide, right?
And just managing all the offset shells and damages there, or things that expire, and you have to go redo them or reprint them, and yeah, so all that.
Putting the wrong shell on and printing the wrong job on the wrong shell, you know,
not good.
What happened?
Well, and really,
Yeah.
this is what led to that $400,000 in
Right.
incremental sales revenues. Because if you don't have to spend so long prepping or turning around to get to the next piece of work, you can push so much more opportunity through your print shop.
Yeah.
That really
Speed of
leads,
turnaround is really important.
right. And that really leads to this last one we want to share with everybody on this case study, which is really about really we want to improve overall. All of us want to have great customer satisfaction, and we are so excited for Lee that all of these great decisions that their company made led to this increase in customer satisfaction. And really where this links back importantly, right, Marianne, into the Solimar philosophy is batch like work. Make sure that the batches of work going to the inkjet makes the inkjet run the way it should, efficiently at rated speed. Basically feed the beast is what we always talk about, right?
Exactly, exactly. And he also talked about the benefit of color matching. So he was able to move into new types of work because now he was really able to hit those colors that before were a bit of a science project sometimes, let's just say. So that kind of went away with this. Plus, we can set ICC color profiles, so we can actually help them. Every time you see this job, I know they want teal, but they really want this. So we can just dynamically adjust that for him all in an automated template.
So, Marianne, I think people are probably curious about the Borns Group workflow. Could you tell us a high-level snapshot of what they have in their workflow feeding their inkjet?
Sure, sure. So Solimar comes right in at the onboarding. So we actually take in the files, we do data transforms into optimized PDF. It goes through an automation process. We do indexing, so the data can actually get cleansed through their BCC software. Comes back into our system. Again, we get optimized data and we output it to what the DFEs all need. So we do drive the color inkjet press along with their other laser printers that they have. And then all the finishing gets applied dynamically right at the time of need. So this is this was phase one, basically, of what we set up with them.
And I just want to do a little shout out that BCC is also a software partner of Solimar, so we integrate really nicely together. So that it's really, they actually were there first, but we were able to provide Lee extra added assurance because of all our experience with that team. So
the other thing I'll point out, Jonathan, is that onboarding and data conversion piece is really important. If you look at the last, 4 years of Keypoint Intelligence data, we know that job onboarding is the single biggest pain for most printing companies, and the ability to standardize it, regularize it, normalize it, all those things, that's a huge, I know he's getting a lot of his savings right there.
No, it's a great point. And then Marianne, you said phase one, so could you tell us a little bit about where they're headed?
Yeah. And they are in phase two already. So they've applied SolaTrack as kind of an umbrella dashboard. So now, right from, as I said, right in the Inkjet Summit before, right from their phone, he can actually see what jobs are coming in, where the process is in place, if they're close to any issues, there's a full alert system built in, as well as reporting. So this is also customer facing, so they can actually let customers know where their jobs are, if there's a problem. And maybe, just less emails. It can be just updates like, hey, we got your jobs, we mailed them, we printed them, everybody's happy. And so this is what they're implementing right now. And so the nice thing is they can put the dashboard in, just an umbrella view, and then they can go in and make it more and more sophisticated as they like.
So that really brings us to the end of our time here at Inkjet Summit with our case study. We really appreciate you joining us and learning all about Lee Borns and the Borns Group. It's such a refreshing case study to see someone do all of this in between Inkjet Summits. So any last words from our esteemed people here on our case study?
So I'll jump in real fast. The one thing that I will say to everyone is, please go back and really look at this case study, because what you will learn from it is how to bring together your current environment, get it automated, and get it making money for you on a more regularized basis. That's the most important thing for me to take away from what Borns Group has done.
Well, it was my wonderful pleasure to meet Lee Borns last year at Inkjet Summit 2019. So excited for all of their success and thrilled that he's not only a wonderful client and he's on our Customer Advisory Council. And with that, we'll say thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Jonathan and Pat, for joining us today, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for joining Inkjet Summit.